Notes on I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died by Emily Dickinson. As I'm sure you can tell, it's still the same night as the last night that I posted notes on because I could not stop for death. And so these are the notes on I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died by Emily Dickinson. A couple of things I didn't mention in the last one, and again, part of the fun of this video is I get to tell stories. I noticed after watching that last video how many times I went and said again, the word again. I would recommend not playing a drinking game to these videos. A few semesters ago, I had a student come up to me on a Monday morning and he said, "I wanted to thank you," in a sarcastic way. And I thought, why? And he said, well, this weekend, some other students and I from the class like to get together on the weekends, and we finally decided after listening to they recorded the lecture, we would listen to the lecture and discuss it and proofread each other's papers, blah, blah. And they said, we picked a word to play a drinking game this weekend, and I picked for you, and by the end of the notes, they had to rush me to the emergency room to have my stomach pumped. That's really a true story. I assume it's true. It's what he told me, and the other students verified. So the point is, I'm going to try my best not to say again, and but it will happen, I'm sure. So let's look at the poem, which of course it will be where my eyes are going back and forth as we move through this. Before we start though, I do want to say on Emily Dickinson, I did not mention in the last video, her poems, she didn't name any of them. And so that's why they're in brackets. If you ever see a poem in brackets, it means the author didn't name it. It was generally the first line of the poem is what we use for that. So that's important there. The other thing is with Emily Dickinson, oh, wait, no, not with Emily Dickinson necessarily. What do I want to talk about before this poem, and I really like this poem. It's a lot more simple, I think, than the other. What I like about it is this idea of the moment of death. We spend so much time in our lives sort of concerned with that. You know, we hear people's famous death last words, that kind of stuff. I have a great uncle-in-law who everybody gathered around before he died to hear his last words. And of course, he was a horrible human being, and we were all excited because we thought he was going to say. They came in and they said, we've taken him off the morphine so he can say bye. And we thought he's going to say, um, I'm sorry, I'm a terrible human being. Please forgive me, whatever. And he came to and looked around the room, and his wife's thin, but so it was not an insult on her. It was just that it was so absurd what he said. But he looked around and then he says, I always enjoyed a trim gal. And then he flatlined. And I thought that was kind of hilarious at the time. And today, his death really didn't bother me that much. But anyway, what we're dealing with here in this Dickinson poem is death and the moment of death. So we start with, I heard a fly buzz when I died. Now that's key there, and it's a funny first line. And the idea is, again, the moment that she dies, there's this fly buzzing. And that's what makes this poem so great. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. Again, she's talking about sort of the eye of the hurricane here, right? You've got the first wave hits, and then there's this, complete and total silence and stillness, and then the second wave hits. And so that's what she's referring to here. But again, that idea that the room is completely calm. They know she's dying. Or him or her. I mean, I'm saying she because it's from Dickinson. But that idea that everything's calm, everybody's prepared, everyone's ready. It was very similar with my grandmother was no coach. She had Alzheimer's and had a stroke and was going to be basically, we just sat around waiting for her to dehydrate to death, which sounds awful, but the room is calm, there's stillness, we're just sort of gathering to wait and hear that final gasp and see the monitor flatline. And so that's really the moment that we have here. And then to top it all off, there's this annoying, nothing's more annoying, and you'll see me outside do this occasionally because of mosquitoes and things, nothing more annoying than a fly in the room when you're trying to die. The eyes around had wrung them dry. Again, the idea of being there, that same situation with my grandmother. And again, that's what's great about this poem is you can relate it to your own personal life. The idea there that everyone's over it. Their eyes are dry, right? I mean, they know she's going to die. They've accepted it. The breaths were gathering firm for that last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. Again, they're sort of waiting, right? And the king, of course, would be her indirect way of saying, you can read it, it's capitalized, you can read it as sort of God there to take her away. Dickinson's not going to give us that directly, so she just says the king, so you can read it as, whomever the God is in that situation. So it's interesting to look at it that way. I willed my keepsake signed away what portion of me be assignable. Uh, it's a great line because you've all known if somebody's died in your family, one of the first instances of death I remember from high school was a friend whose grandmother had died, and she was the last sort of in a line. It had all the family heirlooms and all of that other stuff, and did not have a will. And so I remember my friend's mother taking me over to the house to break in and steal a dinette set that she wanted before somebody else in the family got. And so that's a big thing. I mean, we've all dealt with that with any family member who has anything worth any value. The family sort of fights over that kind of stuff. And here, that's not an issue. Again, she's ready for death. Everything is, her keepsakes have all been willed. They've been all signed away. Everything about her is, there's not going to be any debate, right? There's no drama here. It's just death, waiting for death. No one's worried about anything. It's just focusing on her die. And then, of course, there interposed a fly. So again, that fly, that fly is in the room being
It's 10
annoying.
o'clock.
You'll have to excuse the 10 o'clock. I have my computer to tell me time. Anyway, so it's there to, just this annoying. With blue, uncertain stumbling buzz. Okay, a couple of things there. It's interesting that the fly's buzz is blue. That's called, we call that synesthesia. When we refer to something, a sound, a buzz, right? This is not one of the literary terms you need to know for the exam, but when a sound has a color, right? When we perceive things in ways that they can't be perceived. There was speaking of colors, there was a great line from Malcolm in the Middle once where the mom was talking about the time they accidentally set off a bug bomb with him in the house or whatever, and the kid says, I can smell colors. And so it's that idea, that this blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz. Also the word buzz, that is important and will be on, probably that quote exactly will be on your midterm, because buzz, right, sounds like a fly, and so that's what we call an onomatopoeia. Between the light and me, that's really interesting and really kind of funny here, because think about, I quote more than any other movie in my classes, which is weird because it's not the greatest movie ever and certainly not my favorite movie. I like it, but Poltergeist. And there's the whole idea of going into the light. Carol Ann, in the light, and the Kurt Vonnegut novel. Before the last semester's, not this semester's, there was an idea, and he referred to death as blue, which is interesting, but walking into that light, right? And so there is that light, and there's peace and serenity, as she says in Poltergeist. There's peace and serenity in the light. And what is there between her and the light? This damn fly that's on her nerves and is sort of driving everyone crazy. And so then I like this idea too, between the light and me, okay? And so then she says, and then the windows failed. Now, what's interesting about the windows failing is what she means by this, I think, is trying to open a window, right? There's a fly in the room, so what you're going to do is everyone rushes to open a window to let the fly out. And when the windows are failing, so everyone's in this panic, right? So everything's done, everything's settled, everything's been wheeled away. They're just waiting for her to die. And right before she dies, not only is there this fly in the way of her in the light, but everyone in the room who's waiting around to witness the king and to see her die is sort of in a panic, right? They're trying to do everything that they can to get this fly out of the room, and the windows won't open. So again, you can get this great idea of this scene. You can sort of imagine the scene where she's trying to die and cross into the light, and there's this damn fly between her and it, and the family's trying to watch her die, and they're in this huge panic trying to get a window open unsuccessfully. And then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see. So it ends with death. So it's a great, great poem. I think this is a whole lot of fun. especially from Emily Dickinson, who's not, in my opinion, known for being particularly funny. A great little fun poem.